Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Global Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuel. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, even as in Washington we have a change of administration, which is set to take place in a few days, NATO, in its zombie-like way, just continues grinding on and on and on, just continually ratcheting up this its belligerent talk on Ukraine. So the other day we had Mark Rutte, the new NATO Secretary General, attacking the European parliamentarians for the fact that the Europeans are just they spend 25% of their GDP on welfare, and he said, and they can't come up with enough money for its military. He says just a little bit, just a tiny fraction of what you spend on welfare. Give it to us.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, but the retort would be is that's why we joined NATO, so the Americans pay for our defense and we can have our social welfare programs. What are you missing here, Mr. Secretary General? The guy is a clown.
the
Okay.
guy, the guy is indeed. No, I think that's exactly the point. Yeah, I thought that was the whole point
Wait,
of.
we didn't join NATO to fight anybody.
That's
Okay.
right.
I mean,
And
okay, or right, maybe, a 70-day bombing campaign of some distant capital like
right,
Belgrade. Okay.
exactly.
But, we didn't sign up for this type of thing. And now he's saying, but this is what you did sign up for.
That's right. And then Lithuania said that we're ready to spend 5% of our GDP on military. But of course, the problem with, as mathematics will tell you, 5% of zero is still zero. I mean, so it's just it's nothing. Um,
And when you have zero, you can claim 5%. Okay.
that's right.
I mean, it's so easy to do that. Okay, that's what the Baltic Chihuahuas that's their purpose. They're there to yap loudly. But anything else? No.
Yes, exactly. And so, and then in Germany, there's going to be an election in just a little more than a month. And the German politicians, especially Germany's foreign minister, and we haven't talked about her in a while, Annalena Baerbock, is attacking her boss, Sergeant Schultz,
For sure.
for not doing enough for Ukraine. What's he doing here? And so here, well, let me just show you. This is
She wearing her white pantsuit that she wore to meet
but
the.
you, yeah,
I
Giuliani.
mean, here she's prancing around in a white pantsuit, and she goes and meets a terrorist.
That's
Okay,
right. That's right. Yeah.
yeah, riveting imagery, folks.
That's right. It's riveting imagery. And what was interesting is that she had no problem with the fact that he refused to shake hands with her.
Yeah,
Hey,
well, I
I'm
don't know.
not
I
allowed
saw
to touch
that.
a woman.
I mean, she kind of then she shook her own hand.
So
Okay,
she shook her own hand. Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
very self-referential. It's self-congratulatory, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So it says here, Germany's Baerbock hammers own government for faltering on Ukraine aid. That seems odd, hammering your own government. I mean, you're a member of the government. How can you hammer your own government?
Yeah, yeah, but which government is she working for? I guess that's the question.
That I think is very good. So here there's a quote. Germany as a whole isn't currently seen as a driving force for peace policy in Europe.
That's
And,
true. That's
and
true.
honestly, that pains me. So
Yeah, but
again,
Germany isn't
exactly. But
driving.
that's the curious thing that when they talk about peace policy, it's the opposite of what we normally understand by peace. Peace means the cessation of hostilities. In her view, and of course in NATO's view, peace is sending in more weapons and get more killing off the ground. That's the peace policy.
What do you think, George? That you think that part of her staff, she has someone designated to clip all of the articles about her? She's this kind of psychological type that, I want to know what
Yes,
everybody, particularly what Politico says about
that's
me.
right. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I
want
think.
all the political articles on my desk in the morning. Okay. No, send it to me before I go to bed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's right. Um, and then he says German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has criticized her own government for indecisiveness on Ukraine aid, signaling deep divisions inside the interim cabinet and growing discord among mainstream political parties amid a heated election campaign.
Well, isn't that curious? Because it's heated because of her policies.
Yes. It is. No, keep in mind, her party is running number four in the polls. So she's the center of attention, but she's actually her party is number four in the polls, and says Germany as a whole isn't currently seen as a driving force for peace policy in Europe. And honestly, that pains me. And she told Politico, even now during the election campaign, some prioritize a national perspective. Isn't that terrible? I mean, imagine somebody's prioritizing a national perspective. Huh. Or how to quickly gain a few votes in the parliamentary election.
Yeah, that's called electioneering. But
It's
yeah.
it's kind of called what democracy is. You have these elections every few years, and you kind of have to make your case to the voters. That's the way it works. You're supposed to, pencils down, everybody. Now go make your case, rather than taking real responsibility for securing Europe's peace and freedom.
Is that Germany's job?
Is exactly peace and freedom.
Again, the past always hovers around
Right.
people like this, and she's not even aware. But going back to the original sentence here, Germany as a whole isn't currently seen as a driving force for peace policy in Europe, and honestly, that pains me. Shouldn't have one of the editors at Political say, maybe can you want to rearrange that sentence a
Right.
little?
Right.
Because of people like Peter and George, they're going to
Right.
say, yeah, okay. I mean, there's not even an awareness even how their words are delivered because she's not interested in how we interpret them.
No, 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 no. That's right. She was always shooting her mouth off. I mean, remember when she said, "I don't really care about what German voters think. I only care about Ukraine." And well, at least she's honest about it. I mean, she makes clear her view. And so again, she says, "Well, how dare you prioritize what's good for Germany? What's important is the peace policy." And of course, by peace policy, she means the opposite of what we mean by peace
Yeah,
policy.
and it's really interesting because so far, so far, Ukraine hasn't been mentioned. She doesn't seem to have much interest in the welfare of
No,
Ukrainians.
no, that definitely not, definitely not. And then she goes, Baerbock's frustration comes at a time when Chancellor Olaf Scholz has sparked an intense domestic debate by demanding that new Ukraine aid be contingent on loosening the country's constitutional fiscal restraints. In a television interview last week or this week, Scholz said that he would not agree to a 3 billion euro aid package for Ukraine, supported by Baerbock and other German leaders across the political spectrum, unless it is paid for with new borrowing. So I don't, I'm kind of puzzled about how you're going to pay for it. I mean, you got to come up with some money from somewhere. I mean, they say, well, we've got to where else is this 3 billion going to come from? They says, well, you have to borrow the money. But of course, if you borrow the money, then you kind of run up a debt, and then you have this
Well, also, yeah, what
constitution.
I said a couple of minutes ago, the German past always is hovering around. If you're not educated, you won't be aware of it. But why is Schultz saying, is this kind of, arcane? Is this, is he nitpicking here? No. One of the lasting impressions, tragedies
Right,
of the 20th century when it comes to Germany and its history was the Weimar Republic and inflation. And that destroyed the German
right,
economy and
right,
German society.
right,
Okay.
right.
And even though it's never mentioned here, I suppose the person writing this at Politico was born in 1992, or maybe even 2002, for all we know.
Right,
But this is, and it was that was such a traumatic
right,
experience
right,
is that's supposed to happen in banana republics, right? That's supposed to happen in Zimbabwe. No, it happened in Germany in the middle
right.
of the 20th century, and that's why they have constitutional controls.
Yes, exactly. Fiscal restraint. And then he goes on, Baerbock, who has pushed for passage of the 3 billion package.
It's not her money.
It's not her money, exactly. I mean, I always love it. We're going to do all this money. I mean, you talk as if it's your own personal money. I mean, this is actually money that belongs to German voters. I mean, they're the
In the,
ones. It's
in the
their
middle,
money.
of the longest recession in the post-war
Right.
era.
Exactly. Has repeatedly voiced concerns about what she views as Germany's tentative approach to Ukraine aid. I don't like tentativeness. That's the thing. I don't like tentative.
Okay,
Arguing,
but it's tentative for Germany, but it's not tentative for Ukraine.
that's right. That's it. Arguing that her government is losing the trust of its European allies.
Yeah, that's true.
That trust must not be damaged again by hesitation, which would make other countries worry that Germany won't stand by them.
What do you mean Germany not stand by
Who's
them?
Germany standing by? I
And
don't.
and and, and is Germany at war?
Well, exactly. Germany at war. Also, Ukraine. There's no alliance with Ukraine. So what? This whole thing about Ukraine and standing by our allies. What has that got to do with Ukraine? Ukraine has nothing to do with any allies. There's no formal treaty, demanding that Germany go to the assistance of Ukraine.
There are no obligations here.
None. And then she says Baerbock also sharply criticized previous German governments for what she views as their failure to heed warnings of the Kremlin's aggressive intentions. In particular, she slammed Angela Merkel and the SPD, which previously governed, for building the controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline between Russia and Germany. So she's still going on about Nord Stream. There is no Nord Stream 2, but she's still going on about this. Baerbock really has it bad. I mean, she really has the Russophobia really bad.
Well, see, the problem is, and this is one of the things that Richard Sakwa that we should have on
Yep.
as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the the perception, the rendered history now is that NATO has to expand east while Russia is weak.
Right.
Well, that is one perspective, but Russia says, we see this expansion and we have to counter it.
Right.
And counter it in a defensive way
Right.
is perceived by Baerbock as offensive. Okay. This is this trap,
Right.
but she only sees one end of it. She only sees one part of it.
Right. No, that's
And it's actually kind of sophomoric, her entire approach. Okay.
of course, yeah.
Particularly, being a Monday morning quarterback and looking at the past. Okay. And people like Angela Merkel, she won't say it today, but many governments, you can go back to Willy Brandt, is that, well, if we have better trade relations and energy relations, the better relations overall there will be.
Well, that's right, but that's also the common sense point of view.
Yeah,
which is hey, the more you get. It's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that there won't be war, but at least it's some way towards ameliorating tensions. Because if you're entangled in all kinds of economic partnerships, then there'll be a reluctance to go to war. But she's no. It's like you always have to be preparing for war. Again, it's just amazing. This is the green.
I was just going to say, this is the Green Party, everybody. Good.
And then says, just as Nord Stream 2 was never purely an economic project, despite what the CDU and SPD long wanted to believe, it's also no coincidence that undersea data cables in the Baltic Sea keep getting damaged.
Well, yeah.
Baerbock said, referring to the recent suspected cases of Russian sabotage. And that brings us to an interesting issue, which is there was the other day a Baltic Sea NATO ally summit. So we have all these countries joining this. We have Finland, Denmark, Germany, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Sweden. They all joined in. And they issued this statement at this is NATO Baltic Summit, talking about all about the damaging the critical undersea infrastructure in the Baltic Sea. Again, no one ever talks about who destroyed Nord Stream. That's all. Instead, it's always focusing on this supposed Russian threat. Let's remember. No one has come up with any evidence that Russia has actually damaged any of these undersea cables. We don't even know if there has been any damage to the undersea cables. And again, The question is, well, how many cables are on average damaged a year? I mean, that's because I'm quite sure this is a regular occurrence in many parts of the world that undersea cables are damaged, particularly where there's a lot of shipping, as there is in the Baltic Sea. And then he goes
And
on.
everyone remember that the Baltic Sea is full of munitions from the Second World
Right,
War.
right. That's that's right. And so we are determined to deter, detect, and counter any attempts at sabotage. How about first showing us that there has been any sabotage? Can you provide us with some evidence? Any attack against our infrastructure. I always love it when they talk about our infrastructure. And I mean, they really do believe that the Baltic is a NATO lake, as if it somehow belongs to them. And then you have to tell them, it is international waters. I mean, once you get out from from the immediate territorial waters, the Baltic Sea is international waters, and international shipping, can make use of the Baltic Sea.
Well, is there any recognition, looking at these statements here, is there any recognition that a Russian official could say any attack against our infrastructure will be met with a robust and determined response? Would that be
That's
acceptable?
right. We stand ready to attribute hostile actions committed by malign actors as appropriate. Well, yeah, then you may stand ready, but you kind of have to present us with some evidence. You want to, if you're going to attribute anything to anyone, you can say, okay, and where's your proof?
So anything that goes wrong is malign.
Exactly, that's the point. Anything that goes wrong, and this is what we normally do whenever anything goes wrong. We say it was Russia. And then they go on, blah blah with the NATO, NATO's Maritime Center for the Security of Critical Undersea Infrastructure. NATO's Critical Undersea Infrastructure Network will support efforts to protect and secure vital undersea assets. I always love it when NATO's always got some new bureaucratic entity that it's invented. This is great. There's always
Well,
more work. Yeah.
not only do they have this amazing ability to invent new ones, they get longer and longer. Read that again. That's a long one. That's a long one. I
That's a
mean,
lot. NATO,
you can't even make an acronym out of it. It's too long.
no, exactly. Yeah, you really should do that. You always should have an acronym. I mean, you've got to always have that.
Yeah,
NATO's
because
married. That,
most people might have heard of NATO, but very few of them even know what the acronym stands for.
that's Um, and then says combating breakage of undersea cables and pipeline represents a global problem. Again, you haven't proven that there's anyone is deliberately breaking pipelines. Again, it's amazing. You never bring up Nord Stream 2. I never or Nord Stream general. We urge all states to adhere to their obligations to adopt laws and regulations necessary to provide that the breaking of or injury to a cable or pipeline in the high seas or exclusive economic zones by a ship flying their flag or by a person subject to their jurisdiction shall be punishable offense and to prosecute as appropriate. Um, well, again, I mean, what are they going on about? I mean, how are you going to do this? What's the plan? They're out in international waters. You're going to go and start arresting people. I guess that's kind of what they're suggesting here.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Monty Python skit where the two knights are
They're fighting.
come back, you
Come back, you
coward!
coward! Yes. Russia, here we are. Now, at last, we come to Russia. Russia's use of the so-called shadow fleet. Now, this is. They always say this the shadow fleet, which sounds like there's some shadowy naval grouping. These are just basically tankers
Yeah,
that are sending oil. Now, again, they're in international waters. They're not landing at NATO ports. They're in international waters, but shadow fleet. Imagine it sounds like, hey, they're about to invade NATO.
yeah, and these are all ships that are painted black with no flag. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. They pose a particular threat to the maritime and environmental security in the Baltic Sea and the region
I
and
mean,
global.
what would you call American warships in the Baltic that turn off their
Transponders, yeah.
geolocation? Yeah, is that a shadow fleet?
I I would have thought so.
Technically, yeah, I guess it is.
Yes. This reprehensible practice. What's the reprehensible practice? It says the shadow fleet poses a particular threat to the maritime and environmental security in the Baltic Sea. And then this reprehensible practice. What's the reprehensible practice? They're
Yeah,
in
I mean,
international waters.
and what is the fleet doing? Just
Uh,
because it exists?
Yes, exactly. Poses practice also threatens the integrity of undersea infrastructure.
Well,
Increase.
what this is, everyone, this is projection. It's like, all right, we blew up the Nord Stream, but don't blow up our stuff. This is all this is.
That's right. Increases risk connected to sea dumped chemical munitions. Um, are they
It's,
dumping chemical munitions? What?
who's doing this?
Yes, and significantly supports funding of Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine. Ah, so that's what they're talking about. So that's what you're talking about. That Russia is transporting oil tankers. Well, they can do that. They don't care about your sanctions. That's it. You may say we have our sanctions. Well, what's that to us?
And Russian ships are uniquely connected to sea drop.
Exactly. And exactly. I mean, if they're transporting oil, why are they bothering with the cables? I mean, what do they care about these undersea cables? Um, and
Well,
then
also, George, also, this is an admission of their vulnerability. You know
right,
that.
right. No, but that's right. But again, you have to ask, on average, how many undersea cables are destroyed? Has there been a sudden spike in the destroyed undersea cables? They never say that. There's a lot of undersea cables in the world. I think that probably a lot of them were damaged through
Well, I
every year.
suppose if the past is prologue here, well, if they can't figure out what happened in Nord Stream, I guess how can you figure out what's going on with these cables?
Well, that's in fact interesting when they when they start accusing Russia, saying, "Oh, so you already figured out that it was some oil tanker that damaged your undersea cable, but you don't know who destroyed this massive gas pipelines. That you haven't figured out. You don't have any evidence there, but you know who some undersea cable." And it says we reserve our rights in accordance with international law to take action against any suspected vessels that circumvent sanctions and threaten our security, infrastructure, environment. How is that in accordance with international law? I mean, any attempt to start messing around with international shipping is by definition a violation of international law. So, we're going to take any action against any suspected vessels. Well, okay, try it. Try, going ahead and seizing any vessels in international waters. That's a warlike act,
That's an active war.
right? In close coastal state cooperation, we are increasing surveillance of the vessels, including the inspections of vessel insurance certificates. All right, well, but again, in international waters, you don't have any right to start inspecting
What is their
insurance.
what is their standing to do that?
They have no standing.
That
They have no
sounds like
standing. They're
sounds like
sanctions.
piracy. Sounds like
Right.
piracy to me.
It's piracy, exactly. Their sanctions have no basis in international law. You can say we have EU sanctions, but that has no basis in international law.
Well, I have sanctioned the EU repeatedly, George. So
And then additionally, further measures, including the introduction of tracking tools and the extension of sanctions targeting the shadow fleet, will be put in place.
shadow fleet.
Shadow fleet. We encourage further EU-NATO cooperation in responding to the threats caused by the reckless activities of vessels serving Russian cargo for what's you've made this whole thing up. Absolutely made this all up. You haven't shown any proof that there has been deliberate damage to these cables. And they've come up with it. Anybody has deliberately damaged them, let alone that Russia was behind this. And now you're coming up with all these scenarios, which are really warlike acts. I mean, this is typical of NATO's ridiculous bluster.
Again, accusations are confessions here.
Right.
Who's being reckless here?
Right. Yes.
Who's being reckless?
Who's being reckless?
What standing do they have to do this conduct in international waters?
Right.
They don't.
They don't. And that's right. So this is really what NATO is now planning. Hey, why don't we start a war in the Baltic Sea? You know, that's a bloody good idea. So you know, as I say, there's a kind of zombie-like this NATO comes along. You know, there's a change in administration, and in the meantime, you know, you have Baerbock saying we got to get 3 billion euros into Ukrainian pockets immediately. And then you have this NATO Baltic states threatening to start a war in the Baltic. I mean, it's complete lunacy of this organization.
Yeah, and again, we have to take them at their word because they're not in power. But the presumably the Trump administration wants to somehow, in some shape or form, wind down this conflict. But I guess NATO didn't get the memo.
Right,
Okay,
right,
didn't get it at all. As a matter of fact, this is an affront to
right,
the incoming administration.
right.
And I don't know, Annalena Baerbock, you don't seem to care about elections, but the most important country in NATO does. Donald Trump won an overwhelming, unprecedented electoral victory.
Right,
Okay,
right.
and so who are you, Annalena Baerbock, in your white pantsuit, to challenge that?
That's right.
These people are not serious, George.
Right.
But you,
Yeah,
I've seen these gatherings. I mean, the posturing of these people. It's pathetic to watch. I represent NATO. No, you're from a little village in Lithuania.
right.
You don't
Exactly.
represent anybody.
That's exactly right. And this is why when they do all this, you know, Finland, the Baltic states, Poland, Germany, these are all essentially insignificant military powers. So when they start doing, oh well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, we will not, we will brook no violation of our sanctions. Um, it's basically you're putting this burden onto the United States because it's only the United States who's going to have to pick up the tab for you. And all this stuff. These are completely insignificant military powers, and here they are issuing all these ridiculous, blustering statements.
And another reason why these extended, unwily alliances are so terribly dangerous. What they do is they beg for
Right,
conflict
right.
instead of avoiding them.
That's right.
And George is right. So Trump gets a call at 2 o'clock in the morning. He's awake. Okay. He is awake at 2 o'clock. We have a crisis in the Baltic Sea. What? What?
Yeah. Yes.
We have to do what?
That's right.
Who started this? Well, who told you this?
Right. Yeah.
The Estonians told us.
Yes.
Who? Who?
Yeah. That's right. Exactly. That's it. And that's the whole thing. I mean, this alliance, this is entirely based on the United States is going to come in. The United States is going to risk its lives, its cities, its treasure for us. So we can start all these nonsensical conflicts, but ultimately, you know, it's the Americans who are going to finish it for us. That's why it's an unhealthy alliance. And
Well, and it's also an alliance desperately seeking a reason to exist. We have to protect the Baltic Sea,
that's
even
right.
though we have no legal standing to
That's
do
right.
it whatsoever. Even though the sanctions they invoke are illegal under international law and are not recognized as such.
That's right.
Okay, so again, this is alliance in search of conflict.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. On that very pessimistic note, will that change? Remains to be seen. I
Exactly.
think all of us are kind of in this, treading water right now.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Is NATO doing this as a shot across the bow for
Yeah,
the Trump
I think so.
administration? Yeah.
I think so. That, yeah, trying to Trump
Yeah.
proof NATO. So we'll see if that works. This Trump
Yeah.
proof. Yeah.
There you go. Let's see if it works. All right, everybody. This is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. This is our wind up for the week that was. We get back together on Sunday, and we have a live stream at 10 o'clock Eastern time, just as the inauguration festivities are starting in
Exactly.
Washington.
So exactly, this is the warm up to the inauguration. We're part of the official celebrations of the inauguration. So there's it's in the program. 10 a.m. This the Gaggle live stream, and then 12 p.m.
I'm going to
inauguration.
ask George to do maybe a fashion review of the inauguration of the females there. What Melania is wearing. I don't know if Nancy Pelosi is going to be sober
She's not
enough.
going to be there. She's not coming.
Not going to be there.
No.
Is Joe going to be there?
I think Joe's going to be there, yes, but she isn't going to be there. And Hillary Clinton, I think, will be there, but Obama's wife, what's the name of Obama's wife now?
Michelle.
Michelle, yeah, she's not going to be there. I mean, they'll,
The old man is going to be there.
yes, exactly.
Oh, maybe they can finish off that little chit chat they had
Yeah.
at the funeral. That is a funny story. The way that one went around. What were they talking about?
That's right.
I posit they were talking. Trump was complaining about the catering. Okay,
Yes.
if you can top that, put it in the comments.
No,
Okay,
I think you're right, but I'm surprised that lip readers couldn't make it out because it's not like they were covering their mouths. So I'm surprised that lip readers haven't put forward
and
the theories.
Trump doesn't give a hoot one way or another if you're reading his lips or not. Okay, Obama, that's a different case. Okay,
Right.
I was
Right.
wondering, I wonder why he didn't take the program and put it over as that's what coaches do in football. They cover their
Yes.
mouth.
Yes,
Someone's
they
going.
always do that. Exactly. Yeah. But
Anyway, I mean, world historic. If you like the guy or not, and I always have to stress this. This is an amazing story that's unfolding in front of us. Okay,
right.
there's some opportunities. I have to hope. There's a lot of downside too. So that's why we have elections.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. So 10 a.m. Eastern time on Monday. Please join us, and of course we'll do some podcasts over the weekend. And then, of course, there's the very difficult, vexed issue of the tip jar. And then we have I mean, we have the man who's looking after the tip jar. He's very unhappy, very dissatisfied, complains all the time, and then I have no good answers to his complaints. I think they're all justified. So if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out under the bed, under the sofa cushions, everything into that tip jar as per required. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, we'll be able to have some kind of a more productive dialogue with the dogs. That's a requirement. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.